I want to ask you something, but before you jump in, let's set some rules. I want you to be completely honest with yourself when you answer it. When was the last time you did something just because it brought you joy? Just because it brought you excitement, not out of obligation, not because it was productive, not because if it moved your agenda forward, not because someone needed it from you, but you just did it because it made you feel alive. Now, look, take a second. I know how you are, a high performer, just like me. You're ready to move on to the next thing. But just pause a second and actually think about it. For a lot of people listening to this right now, that answer is further back in your memory bank than you'd like to admit. And if you're really honest, there's a reason for that. Somewhere along the way, you learned or maybe even decided that joy was something that you had to earn. Something that you got after all the work was done, after you hit certain check marks, that it was a reward for when everything was finally in order. But what if, just what if, suppose with me here, that you actually have it completely backwards? Welcome back, guys, to the Emmanuel Dr. EG3 podcast. I'm your host, Emmanuel George, and most people around here just call me Dr. EG3. This is the space where we talk about life, we talk about growth, and becoming. You know, that real kind of becoming, the one that takes work and energy and effort, the one that requires you to be honest and reflect and learn how to hold responsibility without losing yourself in the process. And today, I want to reframe something that I think most high-performing, growth-oriented people have completely backwards. And it's really the role of joy in your life. Here's the model that most of us are operating from. Work hard, sacrifice, grind, produce, and then, and only then, when you've done enough, when you've earned it, when all the goals were hit, all the boxes have been checked, that's when you get to enjoy it. See, for many, joy is the trophy at the end of the race. But here's this problem that I see in this model. The race never ends. There's always another goal. Always another thing that needs to be handled. There's always a reason why now isn't quite the right time to let yourself enjoy it. So it seems that joy just keeps getting pushed and further down the road, further out of your reach, and pushed even more. And in the meantime, you know what happens? Your work suffers. Because here's what nobody's willing to tell you. Maybe I'm the first, just a guy over here on the internet. Joy is not a reward for doing the work well. See, joy is what makes it possible to keep doing the dang work in the first place. It's not the trophy, guys. It's the fuel that keeps you going. See, joy is not what you get when the work is done. Joy is what makes it possible to keep doing the work. I know I said that again, but that was for emphasis and for effect. So let's go ahead and jump into some points and hopefully I could help it resonate with you. So point number 1, joy is an energy source, not a luxury. Think about the times in your life when you were doing something that you just genuinely loved. Something that lit that fire on the inside. I want you to pay attention to how your energy worked differently in those moments. You didn't have to push yourself to show up. You didn't have to negotiate on how to stay engaged. The energy was just there. And I can tell you that wasn't an accident. That's your nervous system responding to the alignment that you were in. When what you were doing is connected to something that genuinely matters to you. When there's joy in the work, your body produces a completely different quality of energy than when you're running on discipline and obligation. See, discipline will get you started. But see, joy is the thing that will keep you going. And the people who sustained extraordinary effort over the long term, they're not just more disciplined than everyone else. See, what it is they found a way to keep joy in the process, not just the finish line. I think about somebody that I was working with who was going through a career transition, who went from one field to the next, one that was, customer facing, client facing, but, they got caught in a routine in which that it didn't quite light them up the way it had once before. And they made a transition. And I can tell you, it was pretty scary for them, to make that transition because there was so much unknowns. There was so much times where they weren't always knowing where the money was going to come from or where they get more clients. And they became that solopreneur. But from working with them and observing, that joy in what they're doing now is not only different from what it was before, it allows them to get through the suck, the messy middle that we've talked about. The thing that allowed them to show up and have a momentum forward in ways that they didn't before. Yeah, things are different in the new position and new role, and what they're doing now as that solopreneur. But I'm proud to say that they get lit up. They have joy. They have excitement of what every new day brings. The joy doesn't make it easy, doesn't make the road any less treacherous or hard. It's the fuel that allows them to get further down the road. Number 2, you've been mislabeling joy as a distraction. Now, here's something that, again, I'm asking you to put something deep here. This is going to take a mirror and a big chair to sit in. A lot of growth-oriented people like you, high performers, high achievers, you've trained yourself to feel guilty when you experience joy. See, because if you start enjoying yourself, oh my goodness, you're not suffering enough. And if you're not suffering, the work must not be hard enough. I'm not grinding hard enough. I'm not pushing hard enough. And see, that's a lie. But it's convincing, one, especially if you grew up people around you equate struggle with worthiness. If you learn that rest is lazy, that pleasure is irresponsible, that it's a waste of time when you could be more productive, that anything that feels good must not be serious. But what you've been calling a distraction is oftentimes the restoration that you need. What you've been calling as indulgence is often actually alignment. The things that bring you joy are not pulling you away from your purpose. In many cases, it's actually pointing you towards it. Number 3, protect things that bring you joy. So, practically speaking, what do I do with that, Emmanuel? Dr. EG3, what do you mean protect things that bring me joy? What do I do? How do I make that happen? See, I'm not trying to give you just a nice idea. I want this to actually change something within you. Start by identifying the things that bring you genuine joy. Not what you think should bring you joy, not what the interwebs told you, not what your friends told you bring them joy, not what looks good, but the things that actually light you up. I want you to make a short list of them. 3 things, 5 things, 20 things, doesn't matter. Then I want you to look at your life now that you have your list and ask, when did I last make time for any of these? And if the answer is, well, let me pull up my calendar, not sure, where's that note? If you can't figure it out, I want you to ask yourself, what is it costing you not doing those things? Not just happiness, because we all know happiness can be fleeting, but I want you to think about, what is it costing you in energy, in creativity, in your ability to sustain the type of work that actually matters to you? And then do one thing this week to protect one of those joy sources. Put it on the calendar. Treat it like any other appointment that it is. Because see, your joy is not a luxury. It's not an item that you'll get when everything else is handled. It's the resource. It's the fuel that makes everything else possible. So, challenge of the week. I want you to do something radical. I want you to do something wild, right? Hold on. Stop the presses. This is going to be a hot take, y'all. Your challenge this week, I want you to schedule some joy. I want you to literally open your calendar, go through all of the to-dos, and I want you to put it on your calendar, something you enjoy. One thing. Maybe 1 hour, one morning, one evening. Look, I'm not going to push because I know I'm already asking you to do something radical anyway. But that I want you to do that one thing that is just for something that brings you alive. Not productive, no type of assessment associated with it, no outcome required. And when that time comes, this is going to be the hard part of the challenge. When your brain starts to list all of the things that you should or could or maybe possibly could be doing, I want you to notice when that happens. I want you to write down what it says. What is your brain telling you? What are the actual words or thoughts that are coming as you start to have that experience? Because see, what that voice tells you about joy is going to tell you a lot about the stories that have been running your life. And guess what? Once you write it down, do the joyful thing now. Go enjoy it, right? And look, I'm not asking for a lot, just 7 days. That's your window. Open your calendar. Schedule that thing for joy. When the time comes, pay attention to your thoughts around what is happening as you're about to experience something that brings you joy and pleasure and happiness. Write it down, allow it some space for you to work through that. And guess what? Go enjoy that thing. Go enjoy it wholeheartedly. And as we close, I want to leave you with this. The version of you that feels burnt out, that feels like it's running on fumes, that you've been doing this stuff, grinding through every single day, that version of you doesn't serve you well, or how about this? Anyone else well? Not your family, not your work, not all the people and things that are counting on you. But the version of you that is genuinely alive, the full version, the one that's connected to what makes you feel like yourself, the version that has more to give than you could imagine, protect your joy. Not because you deserve a break, but because your joy is the fuel that makes everything else possible. And as always, guys, I love you much.